Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you for spending part of your day here looking at my video. I'm going to create 3 cards today, 3 Shabby Chic cards using papers from Denise Boddey. 2 of the cards are made using her new paper collection called Dram Storybook, and the other one is from her Elegance collection. All of my cards today are fun fold cards. So my first one, I'm using a mauve plain cardstock for my base. I'm going to cut a piece that's 4 1/4 inches by 11 inches, another piece that is 3 1/4 inches by 10 3/4 inches, and another piece that's 3 1/4 by 2 1/4. Then I'm going to score my card at the 11-inch piece. I'm going to score at 2 3/4 and 5 1/2, and the 10 3/4 inch piece I'm going to score at 3 1/2 and 6 1/2. Now these measurements will be on my blog if you want to see them written down, so I'll put a link to my blog in the description box below. Now I'm going to use my Teflon bone folder to score or burnish each one of those folds. I want to make them nice and crisp so that they will sit as flat as possible. So these are the papers I'm going to use for this card. They're from the Daydream Storybook paper range. The first one is Dreams, and I'm going to fussy cut a piece from this paper called Chapters, that one with the purple flower on it. Now I've gone ahead off screen and cut my papers. I've cut one piece 5 1/4 by 4, 2 pieces 4 inches by 2 1/2, one piece 3 1/4 by 3, one piece 3 inches by 2 3/4, and one piece 4 inches by 3 inches. Now I'm going to take my distressing tool and distress all of the edges of all of these papers, and then once I've done that I'm going to use my black ink cube to ink around the edge of each of the papers. Now the distressing tool that I'm using is discontinued, but Tim Holtz has one available. It's like a circle with spokes on it. It looks a bit like a sun, and it's got blades in between those spokes, and there's that. Or there are others out there as well, but if you haven't got one you can use your scissors, and in another card I'll show you how to do it with your scissors. You can use a black ink cube, or you can use your normal ink pad and your blending tools to ink the edges. The way you do that is completely up to you, but this is my preferred way. So now it's time to attach all of my pattern papers to my card base. These are all matching layers, so it will be easy to work out which papers go where. I'm just attaching them flat onto the card base. There's no foam tape or anything behind any of these papers. The papers I'm using, the pattern papers that is, are prototypes, so they're slightly different to the ones that are available now. The ones that are available now are double-sided, whereas these are white on the background, on the back. And when you use these papers, it will be double-sided pattern paper. You can see here I got one of my pattern papers on upside down, so I had to take it off and reposition it. Now that I've got all my pattern papers on, I'm going to go over my edges once again to make sure that they're nice and crisp. This helps my card to sit nice and flat and move easily in the opening and closing. Now I'm going to attach my 2 panels, one on top of the other. To do this, I'm just going to run a piece of double-sided tape down the 2 narrow edges of the top panel. So that's the 3 1/4 inch edge, one on each end. When I'm attaching that to my card front, I make sure that the 4 1/4 inch panel is on the top, so that's actually going to be on the front of the card. I'm going to position the right hand edge of the top panel about, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch from the edge, and then I'm going to stick that in position and use my bone folder to burnish that tape into place so that I know it's going to stay there with the card opening and closing. Now I'm going to attach that fussy cut panel, that piece that I cut from the chapters paper. I am trying to decide whether I'll put that piece of pink behind it or not, and in the end I decide yes I will. So I attach the fussy cut embellishment to the pink cardstock so that you can only see the pink cardstock in the top right hand corner, and then I attach that to my card base using, in my case, some foam, sticky back foam. You could use foam tape or you could use cardboard scraps, anything like that, just to give it some dimension. Be careful when you do attach it that you don't go past the edge of that first top panel with your foam or whatever it is. And when I actually attached the embellishment to the front of the card, I took it out to about a quarter of an inch from the edge of the card so that it goes right across all layers there. You'll be able to see that in a close-up. I'll put a close-up at the end of this bit here so you can see exactly how that one's positioned. I used my art glitter glue to attach the cutout embellishment to the pink cardstock. For the sentiment for this card, I'm using my Woodware stamp called Word Fragments. I've stamped and heat embossed with gold embossing powder. Let's Celebrate. I've trimmed that down so that I've just got the gold frame, and now I'm using my black ink cube to ink around the edge of that. I have stamped and heat embossed a whole heap of these sentiments, and I've just keep them in a little box on my desk, and when I'm ready for a sentiment I just dig in there and get one out. Saves me having to go through the process of getting all my heat embossing stuff out. But that's where my sentiment came from for this card. Okay, for my next card I'm going to use basil paper called Tutu Pink. I haven't got a full sheet of this, but you don't need much. I'm going to cut one piece 7 inches by 5 1/4 inches and another piece 4 inches square. Then I'm going to score the 7-inch piece at 2 3/4 inches on the 7-inch end, and the 4x4 piece I'm going to score at 1 inch. Once again, I'm going to fold and burnish those score lines. The papers I'm using for this card are from the Daydream Storybook range again, and this paper is called Our Story. Mine is white on the background, but of course yours will be double-sided. So I'm going to cut these pattern papers 5 inches by 4 inches, 2 1/2 inches by 5 inches. I'm going to cut 2 of those, and 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. I'll cut 2 of those as well. Just a reminder that all of these measurements will be on my blog. Once again, I'm going to use my distress tool and distress and ink the edges of all of the pattern papers. I think that if you're creating a shabby chic card, this is something that really helps to make it look shabby chic. Now I'm going to use double-sided tape to attach my flap to the right hand edge of my card. To do this, I added 2 rows of tape so that the whole flap was covered, and then attached it to the centre vertically right up to the right hand edge of the card base. So I'm creating a flap that's going to fold in towards the card. Once I've got that in position and burnished into so that it holds there nicely, I'm going to go ahead and use double-sided tape to attach all of my pattern papers. The pattern papers are matting layers for the card base, so it won't be hard to work out where each piece goes. Once I've got them attached to the card base, I use my bone folder to burnish them onto the card base so that I know they're going to stay in place. Now I'm going to embellish the front flap of my card. I'm using some broderie lace from my stash. I'm cutting that to the same length as the panel on the front of the card. I think that was 4 inches, yes. And then I've got a piece of chipboard. It's half a piece of chipboard actually. I've used the other half on something else. I can't remember the name of this piece of chipboard, but I will link it in the description box below. I'll actually link all of the products I'm using in the description box below if you're interested in looking at them. So I'm going to attach the piece of chipboard first. I'm using my art glitter glue to attach all of these pieces. I've also fussy cut a floral bouquet from that same pattern paper, and that will be another embellishment on top of this. So first layer is the chipboard, which has had a coat of white gesso. Then I'm going to attach the lace on top of that, and then I'm going to attach the fussy cut floral bouquet. The sentiment came from the same stamp set, Woodware word fragments, and once again it is heat embossed with gold embossing powder. I've trimmed that down, inked around the edge of it, added a piece of scrap chipboard behind it, and then attached it to the front of my card. To finish this card off, I'm going to use Nuvo drops in Morning Dew, which basically dries clear. I'm going to put 3 little drops at the top and 3 little drops at the bottom on the larger, I guess, front panel, the bit that you can actually see over the top of the smaller front panel, or underneath the smaller front panel. And when these dry, they dry clear, and so it just highlights that colour. And my third card is a little bit different. I saw this on YouTube, and the person that was making it to go into a journal. But I thought that it would make a nice card just on its own. So basically what it is, it's a pocket with a card inside of it, but it's only a single layer card. So you've got a bit of decoration on the front of the tag that's inside of the pocket, and then you've got space on the back to write your greeting. So I'm cutting my cardstock, which is a pale green, and I'm cutting that 5.5 by 10.5. So this is going to make a 5-inch square pocket. I'm going to score it at 5 inches and 10 inches, and then I'm going to turn it around so that I'm on the 5.5-inch edge, and I'm going to score it at 5 inches, or if you go the other way, at 1/2 inch. I made a mistake with my card when I first cut it. I cut the paper, the cardstock 5.5 by 11, which was 1/2 inch too long. So I do end up scoring it twice. So I end up scoring it at 5 and 10 and 10.5. But I do cut off that last 1/2 inch. So I do end up with my 5.5 by 10.5 scored at 5 inches and 10 inches. A bit confusing, but as I said, all of the details will be on my blog, and there will be a link in the description box. For this card, I'm going to use pattern paper from one of Denise's older collections, and this one's the Elegance collection, and this particular paper is called Style. So now I'm going to assemble my little pocket. I'm going to fold along all of my score lines, and then I'm going to trim some of the pieces off. Once again, I'm burnishing my folds very well. Now I'm going to take out that little square where the two fold lines meet, and I'm going to take them out on a slight angle. Then I'm going to, at the centre fold, I'm going to cut a slight angle and then cut the whole section from the centre out to the side that hasn't got the side fold. I'm going to leave this at normal speed so you can see exactly what your pocket should look like when you finish cutting your sections out. Now I'm going to add double-sided tape to the, the outside edge, the top edge, the edge that's going to fold. When you fold your flap in, it's the edge that's on top. So I'm using 1/2 inch tape because the pieces that are folded up are 1/2 inch, and I want to make sure that my tape goes right to the edge because I like to have my pockets sealed to the edges so there's no gap there. So I'm applying my double-sided tape, and then I will fold my bottom up and attach the side to the bottom. This will be attached just in that corner. Then I'll carefully fold the top over and make sure my edges are aligned, and then attach the top onto the back of the pocket. Once I've got my pocket assembled, I use my bone folder to burnish those taped areas again. I took my pocket to my big shot and used my Spellbinders standard large circles to cut a finger pull area into my pocket. Now I'm going to cut the piece that goes inside of the pocket. To do that, I'm cutting a piece of the same mint coloured cardstock, 4 3/4 inches square. I've cut pattern papers for my pocket and my card. I cut 2 pieces 4 3/4 inches square for the pocket and 2 pieces 4 1/2 inches square. I also used the same die to cut the same finger pull out of the larger pattern papers to go on the outside. If you're doing this, be careful and don't do what I did the first time round. I used the pattern from one to cut the other one, and because I didn't have my finger pull perfectly in the centre of my pocket, they didn't fit. So, lesson learned there, always cut both sides individually. Pattern papers get the same treatment as the other cards did, so I'm using my distressing tool and then my ink cube on each edge of all of those pattern papers. As I said before, if you haven't got a distressing tool, you can use the blades of your scissors. Now I'm going to use double-sided tape to attach my pattern papers to my card and my pocket. So of course the bigger ones go on the pocket and the smaller ones go on the card. I almost forgot, before you attach the final side of your card, if you want to put some lace on there like I wanted to have a nice pull action on that card, you need to do that before you attach that final layer of your pattern paper. So I'm going to just trim a bit of lace up, add it to my card using liquid glue, and then apply my pattern paper over the top of that. I fussy cut this castle from the pattern paper and I'm going to use my liquid glue to attach that to the front section of the card that goes inside the pocket. To decorate the front of the pocket, I'm going to use some of the same lace that I used on my card insert on the front. So I've cut 5 pieces that are 4 3/4 inches long, and I'm going to start about 3/4 of the way down the front of the pocket and attach those layers so that they slightly overlap each other as they go down. There's enough lace there to cover the whole bottom of the card, doing it that way. The lace came from my mum, so it's probably very, very old. On top of this lace, I'm going to place a piece of chipboard. I cannot remember the name of this chipboard, so once again I will link that in the description box below. I'm going to sort of trim that down a bit so that it doesn't overhang my pocket too much. I don't mind if it overhangs a bit at the top, but the side and the bottom I don't want too much hanging over. So I'm going to use my art glitter glue to attach that once I'm happy with it. Now I'm going to attach some floral embellishments. These were fussy cut from the same pattern paper. I'm going to use my art glitter glue once again to attach those on top of my chipboard. This is the paper I fussy cut the flowers from. Now I've got a flower that I made previously using the Craft Barn Primrose die. It is a die and a stamp set, but I've just used the die for this one, and I've used the papers from this same collection to cut the layers. I've inked around the edge of it and shaped it, and then attached it layers on top of each other using a liquid glue. If you're interested in seeing how these flowers are made, leave a comment below and I can do a how-to video to show you how to do those. So I had a few, but I decided just to go with the one flower, and I'm using my glue to attach that to the front of the pocket. I had a piece of the chipboard that I'd cut off that didn't fit on properly on the front of the pocket, so I've used that to sort of tuck in behind the flower for a bit of added interest there. To add a little bit of sparkle to this card, I am using my Wink of Stella clear glitter pen, and I'm going to apply a good thick coat of that to all of the chipboard pieces. I added a gem to the centre of the flower, and my sentiment comes from a uniquely creative pack. I'm going to, it says happy birthday, I'm going to cut that out, trim it down to size, add it to a piece of scrap chipboard, and then attach it to the front of my pocket. So there we have our pocket and our insert. The back of the insert is where you would write your personal message to the recipient. And that is it for my 3 cards for today. So they're all different folds, something a bit interesting I think. This last one, I haven't seen any cards like that before, so I'm quite pleased to have made that one. Now I'm just going to show you a few photos, close-ups and whatever. While I'm doing that, don't forget that if you're not a subscriber, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. If you leave me a comment, I will definitely get back to you. And if you give me a thumbs up or a like, that really helps my channel to grow. So once again, thank you for being here with me, and I hope that you can join me for my next video.